The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.
Hey, what's up, my woods people? I'm Tyler Jones, and this is the Backcountry mini-series from the Element Podcast. Casey, fill them in.
Since we are diving headfirst into the backcountry hunting this season, we decided to call in some help and talk to some experts that know how to crush it in the backcountry.
So make sure and subscribe, and if this is helpful, we'd love for you guys to give us a 5-star rating and an iTunes review.
Absolutely. Now let's get into it because I still have a lot of Mountain House flavors to try before September gets here. All right, on the show today, we've got Adam Foss. Adam, what's going on, dude?
Hey, man, not too much. Just surviving the doldrums of winter up here in Canada.
Oh, man, the doldrums of winter. Yeah, that's pretty opposite of what we got going on. It's been in the 90s all week until we had tornadoes last night. So a little bit different, but y'all still got some of that white stuff on the ground, I guess, huh?
Par for the course. It's gone now. I'm looking at a few mountains. All our high country alpine stuff's still under a good amount of snow, but down here it is warming up and the days are getting longer. It's the best time of year, man. It's like time to shake off winter.
Yeah, that's cool, dude. So like whenever winter starts to break like this, what are y'all looking forward to? Is it fishing or is it bear hunting or what's going on?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. We like just to get out. I mean, it's just like nice to be able to ride the bikes around and hike and camp on the weekends without too much protection. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. We're kind of cruising around. We just actually picked a ton of morel mushrooms. So we're kind of full on in that season. And I don't do a ton of bear hunting, but yeah, I don't know. Just like getting out and getting active and getting, I don't know, just like the darkness kind of weighs in on you. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, y'all are dealing with that whole, like 18 hours of darkness or whatever a day, that kind of stuff, and not something we understand as much. But I feel like that whole cabin fever is relative. Like around here, it's like we just went through blackberry season, and now it's like full-on fishing season and sunburn season, garden season, and it's the same feeling. It's like, man, things are alive, things are popping. So it's cool. That's right. For sure, man. And go ahead.
You got yourself a hunt to get ready for, too.
Yeah, for real, man. And that's kind of been the next thing is I tend to not, like, get super pudgy over the winter, but, man, winter weight's the thing, Like, it's kind of hard. So kind of the bigger thing right now is, like, getting ready, getting in shape, and getting, the gear together and all, and just trying to not to chew my fingernails just all the way into the quick, just kind of in anticipation for September, but it's kind of hard not to sometimes. So pretty stoked about
it. There's a saying that I like to play through my head that I think is something like anxiousness, nervousness, and excitement are kind of all confused to be the same thing. So like you're half nervous, but you're also excited. And that's sort of It's up to you to interpret how those feelings make you feel and what they drive you to do. Which it sounds like, to call me up to talk about gear is like, I don't know, you're either going in the right direction or the wrong direction.
Maybe I'll give you. Should we be nervous or anxious or excited about this?
Excited, man.
Okay.
All right, dude. I'm pumped. Yes. No, for real. I mean, and our goal is just to talk to people and not so much, like learn the ins and outs of what exact pieces to get, but like maybe have a more conceptual view of like what a backcountry hunt and experience is. Because, I mean, I've kind of got this what you might call a glory tag, but I want to go in there and have a great hunt. And if we come out with a big bull, that would be awesome, right? But I want to go in, enjoy the experience, and kind of really get a taste for the wilderness. So, and I understand that's probably something that you know a little bit of something about, right? So when do you think you went on your first like true wilderness style hunt?
I remember I was 13. It was early September. My birthday's in late September, so I was like basically 14.
Yeah.
First week of September, opening season for bighorn sheep, where I grew up in southern Alberta in the archery zone, the bow zone outside of Canmore, they call it. Packed in with my old man. And I don't know how far back we were. Probably felt like a million miles. And I think it took us 10 or 11 hours to get in there, but I've gone back there since many, many times, and it's actually not as far as it seemed when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just really remember that moment of sort of walking up the creek and then through the timber and through the willows and then just like getting out into the alpine, and sort of seeing really like what sheep country is and how wild it is. And yeah, I kind of never forget that. That sort of like hooked me big time. Just you pop into the alpine, you sort of breathe that big breath of fresh air, and that was it, man. I just think it's like so cool. You have everything you need in your backpack, and you really can kind of go wherever you want to go. And you're really not going to see a lot of people. You usually know people, and that's what I love. And so yeah, I kind of did it at a pretty young age, and then just sort of took off from there. For better or for worse, I couldn't find anything better to do with myself. And
yeah. So
all the time.
How'd that hunt go? Were y'all successful in harvesting a sheep?
Oh, absolutely not. They say the year you start bow hunting sheep is the year your ram is born. And usually you're trying to kill like
That's cool.
6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10-year-old rams. So,
yeah. That's
we've made all kinds of mistakes. You're talking about the right guy of how to do things the wrong way and sort of learn from those mistakes, especially when it comes from a gear and food perspective to just sort of mentally how to approach things. And yeah, I mean, we just, I don't know, those trips are, we think about it now, it's like, it was a bonus to see sheep back then. And now it's like, yeah, we get a little bit more dialed. And of course, there's other factors, like there's more and more hunters out in the mountains than there ever was. But yeah, I don't know. If you're going out on a wilderness hunt, especially like a wilderness bow hunt, and success is defined in taking an animal, like you're maybe not necessarily always on the right hunt, because there's so many factors, right? There's so many factors thrown in on those types of hunts that really it's not a guaranteed deal by any means.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, wilderness is a special thing, and if you can't enjoy it for what it is and that the wild side that it has that you can only experience there, then you're kind of missing the point if you're just going in there trying to kill a big animal. It's kind of a different thing. And it sounds like you got like that whole drive for that experience honest if your dad's carrying you at, your younger teenage years into a sheep hunt. Is the sheep hunting thing kind of run deep in your family?
Yeah, just my dad just started doing it. So we just kind of hunted mule deer and elk, and then there's just an awesome opportunity to hunt bighorn sheep over the counter in Alberta and in an archery zone, and you can just go, you buy your tag, it's $50 and away you start climbing up the mountain. So and then I have an older brother that's 2 years older named Cam, and he's super into it as well, and yeah, it just kind of seemed like the normal thing to do, and never really thought anything of it. And yeah, I mean, it's the same as I mean, it's a lot like backpacking around and hiking and just like being out there. Like you said, it's sort of all those things that go into it, and hunting is just sort of the little carrot and the excuse to be out there.
Yeah.
Looking around. So I'm excited for you guys. I mean, I just like talk to some people sometimes, and they're getting ready for their first mountain hunt or sheep hunt or elk hunt, and you're sort of teetering on the edge of something, this great precipice of diving into something pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost. That,
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to hear how everything goes in the next few months and how it goes on the hunt, and then after sort of reflecting on it.
Thanks, man. I'm almost a little bit scared that I'm going to like it beyond belief, and then it's like a good scare. They're like what you were talking about a while ago with, like, the anxiety, nervousness, and excitement. There's a chance that, like, you get addicted to something like this. I can already tell. I haven't even gone yet, but, like, I have to mentally prepare myself for that idea that, like, after this, a truck camp hunt might not be enough after that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'll still probably do it, but there'll always be – it's like anytime you experience something great, it's like it's hard to go back to what you once knew. So kind of trying to mentally prepare myself for that concept of, hey, this might be really awesome, but also be sure and just love what you've always done too.
Yeah, totally. And you might end up in Canada or Alaska quicker than you thought.
Yeah, I have a great uncle in Alaska that's it's really tempting to go up there. Yeah, I'm not close enough, I guess, to get the next of kin tag, but at least have a contact and a place to stay. So you never know, man.
There you go.
The thin-horned white ones up there kind of get me excited. It's kind of dolls are like, if I have a dream hunt, it'd be a doll. So
that's cool, man.
That's the place to do it. So, anyways,
that's the dream hunt to go on if you're a sheep dreamer, right?
Is it? It's like just all the apex.
Just money wise, I guess.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, like, speaking of that, you said $50 for a tag, right? Not 50,000 earlier,
right?
Because it just seems like they get the prices get more outrageous every year, man, and that's not a fun thing to look at, from my position at least. But
yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. It's like the cool thing to do these days.
It is, man.
The supply of the demand is quite wild, and the other thing I think that just on like the cost, and you filmed a couple of stone hunts. You were saying, Tyler, last couple of years. And so those like sheep hunts in like the Northwest Territories, Alaska and stuff, you think about the cost, it's pretty absorbent. And you think about like the outfitters, like if you think about how much effort and time and money it takes to like get all the infrastructure. I mean, every nail, every piece of wood, every head of lettuce in your salad has been flown like multiple flights, or in the Northwest Territories, you can't even drive there. So everything's come up on a barge. Milk is $20 a gallon at the last town that you go into, and then you fly in from there, right? So the outfit, like, it's like a $20,000 sheep hunt. It's like they don't actually really make all that money.
Mm-hmm.
All that much money is what you think. It's like anyways, just a comment on that. It's like you're so remote. It's like it's almost like easier to get anywhere else in the world than it is like the north tip of North America.
Yeah.
And so, anyways,
yeah,
I digress.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for sure. I mean, I thought the same thing up there, and our hunt wasn't like super remote for British Columbia, I guess, but there was definitely so many things to think about when it comes to in the outfitter buying that territory essentially in a way, and just all the different costs, man, fuel. When you're flying and stuff like that, it's just, and when you're looking at like sheep hunters, they kind of want like, they are a type of person that tends to really expect results, because they've probably had that in their businesses all throughout their life. And so like, you're kind of held really liable as like a sheep outfitter or a guide, it seems like. And so like you might spend money on just flying as like scouting missions and that kind of thing, and spending time out there in August looking for bands of rams or whatever. So I totally see it. I just wonder, like, at what point does supply and demand start to level out? Like, are we still continuing? Is the price still going to continue up for the next decade or whatever?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I think the bubble kind of seems to have to break. I mean, one of the big factors for Canada is the exchange rate. So right now the dollar is like 30 points. The American dollar is 30 cents in the dollar, and a lot of the outfitters just charge in American dollars. So the Canadian economy is not doing the greatest. So the dollar is weak, and they'll continue to, which is actually a good thing for these outfitters as long as the economy's doing good and they're charging in US dollars. So, I don't know. Yeah. I know you guys didn't call me to talk about that stuff.
No,
that's just interesting stuff.
It is interesting, man. It's a whole like different socioeconomic status and different class of people that just kind of, I don't know, intrigues me sometimes to think about, man, because it's like, in a way, it's like, it's just such an unknown thing to me. So, yeah, I definitely am interested in that kind of stuff. And my degree is in economics, so I do have some interest there. So,
yeah.
Interesting.
Here's one last thing for you. In like the 60s, and anyone who knows more about this that's listening that's going to correct me on this and call me out. But essentially, in like the 60s, a sheep hunt might be, like a stone sheep hunt might be, like, let's say it's $5,000. A new pickup truck is about $5,000 or $6,000. And in 2018 or 19, let's say, the stone sheep hunt is $45,000, let's say, $50,000. And a new pickup truck is $45,000 or $50,000 or more, depending on what kind of truck you're driving around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, anyways, that's the last.
Yeah, dude. No, it's definitely, you can see that correlation in scaling as there's been appreciation. But yeah, we're sitting on the shores of Lake Fork in Texas, and you may have heard of it. You probably don't, being as far away as you are, but, most of the trucks around here in the parking lots at the ramps are a little more than $45,000.
Right.
There's some ridiculous rigs here, man, like, $60,000, $70,000 trucks with $100,000 boat, bass boats, you know what I mean? Like not even, they're just 21 foot bass boats. So it's ridiculous, but,
whereabouts in Texas, where in the state are you guys at?
Northeast.
Northeast. Okay.
Yeah. Like, so east of Dallas, about 70 miles or so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Looks probably a lot different than like what most people would think of as Texas. You know, when Texas isn't all mesquite trees and cactus and stuff. And where we're at, it's, big oak trees and a few pines and cedars scattered around and stuff. So kind of more of the eastern look or whatever, kind of rolling hills. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. But it's different, man. That's kind of, we grew up with, kind of deer out the back door, nothing real, no giant bucks or anything. And that's just kind of what we've known as hunting. And then as we get older and sort of mature, in some ways mature at least, right? You kind of like start looking for other things and new things. And it kind of developed into, my family's been going to Western Colorado for many years. And kind of going up there mule deer hunting at first and then transitioning into elk. And I've done a ton of truck camping, hunting elk and stuff, and have had some success and had fun with it. And then it's like, okay, what else is there out there? What's more fun? How can I like feed this lust for adventure? And and that's kind of how I ended up with the tag. And while we're talking to you, it's like because we want to do that wilderness thing and get prepped up and do it right and not have a terrible experience, because I want to have a good experience doing it. So I know it takes a ton of, that's not a good way to say it. It's not a ton of gear, but it takes some precise gear choices.
And expensive.
And somewhat expensive things to go into the backcountry and have success. Like you were talking about a while ago, like the sufficiency of having everything you need in a backpack. It's kind of surreal to some people who haven't done it before. So let's, if you don't mind, let's start with like the idea of the pack itself. Like, what do you look for in a good backpack that's going to be kind of your lifeline for the next 8-9 days?
Right. Yeah, no, and backpack is one of the big ones. It sort of dictates everything that you're going to be able to carry. It's going to dictate how comfortable you are when you're out there. It's also going to give you an idea of how much range you can get out of your hunt, because, of course, from a volume perspective, how much food you can fit in is basically, your sand in the hourglass of how many days you can be out there.
Yeah.
And then you think about it all in reverse. If it can haul meat, and how it hauls meat is how far you can go to be able to harvest an animal, especially a big animal like an elk, and especially in September or it'd be a late September hunt, the second hunt, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. It's going to be cool at night, but it's going to be potentially warm during the day. So you're thinking about a big animal, moving him out with 2 people over, 4 loads, probably, 2 trips each. it kind of dictates what you're able to do. So it's probably one of the most important pieces of gear. I'd say it's probably the top 2 or 3 when it comes to those types of decisions that you're making. And I'm looking for, number one thing is fit and comfort. And so the ability to have a backpack that, and a lot of the top end brands that are out there now do, but the ability to dial in the fit to your specific needs. You know, you might have a standard waist belt size, and waist belts are pretty usually adjustable. And then you're looking at torso length. And so you're able to adjust usually it's called like the yoke of a frame up and down to make it fit your body really well. You're looking for this like 45-degree angle on your load lifters coming down to the top of your shoulder straps, which your load lifters basically is an extension of the frame. It kind of goes up above your head. You're looking for good contact and pressure from a weight perspective, evenly distributing the weight through your shoulder straps and down into your waist belt. And so that's one of the biggest things, and I think it's one of the things that people often overlook. I think it's kind of the best way to get ready for the mountains is wearing your backpack with 40 pounds of concrete and the footwear that you're going to be wearing in the mountains, and walking your dog, then walking around the park, then walking up some hills, then walking up some steep hills, then having 50 pounds and then 60 pounds. And then, you know, it's sort of like 3 things. It's physically getting your body ready and sort of doing it in a way that is actually really applicable to the mountains. All those small little muscles and stabilizing muscles in your feet and calves and legs and back and core. Then mentally it's getting yourself ready. When you get at the trailhead and you have 55 pounds of stuff and you throw it on, you're not having that sort of, oh man, what have I got myself into? You're going, hey, I've done this for the last 3 months and I'm ready. Mm-hmm. Same goes for when you throw a hind quarter of an elk that might be 80 or 85 pounds. You know, that's never going to really feel great. I mean, it does feel great. It usually means you've been successful, but when you throw that pack on it and you know, hey, I've done this before. I had 80 pounds of sand or concrete in my pack, and yep, I could get it on. I could stand up. I could safely walk around for a mile or 2 and then take a break. And mentally it just allows you to be able to go, I can do this. And then the third thing is it just sort of breaks in the pack and breaks in your footwear, because I think those are 2 of the ways that you're going to go horribly wrong. Is you're going to have a pack that doesn't fit, that you haven't kind of broken in and dialed the fit in, mm-hmm. or you're gonna have boots that don't work for you, and you're gonna have blisters, and those are the most, you know, debilitating things I think that can happen on your first time. And those are mistakes that I've made plenty of times. You know, wrong boots for the application, or new boots. You know, you wore out your old boots, or you wanted it. Some buddy talked you into this new brand of boots, and you went out and bought them, and then you took them on a hunt 5 or 6 days later. Those are going to be the soul crushing ones.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I kind of meandered off on the packs, but I looking for fit, adjustability, comfort, is a big thing. And there's a lot of lightweight packs out there these days. And, you know, I think some companies are doing some awesome things for backpacks. And, the thing you got to keep in mind too is a pack that's a half a pound or a pound lighter when it's 80 pounds. It don't matter if it's 80 or 81. It's still gonna hurt.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a big thing that, and this is, you know, coming in maybe with a touch of naivete where I haven't done it much, but I'm like, man, I'll sacrifice a few pounds if it means comfort. And at the same, and it's just like what you're saying. Like whenever you're talking about 1.3% of your total weight, I mean, that's not much, right? I know that there's a big difference in 25 and 45, but there's not a lot of difference in 45 and 47, or, you know, 108 and 110 whenever you're trying to get out the whole thing. So I know too, for like sheep hunters, and a lot of times just in general, people who are going into the wilderness, you're going to go back a long ways, and the concept of being able to put a lot of stuff in the pack as far as like meat goes, and not have to do 2, maybe 3 trips is pretty important. And I know like a lot of times with sheep hunters, it's like you're taking everything on the way out, right? So how do you manage those super heavy loads whenever you're talking? And I don't really know, like what is, if say if you're doing like a solo bighorn hunt, right, and you want to take cape, skull, horns, and the meat out, what's that load look like, and then how do you manage that load on your back?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I think, horns, hide, boned out meat might be, I would say, you could be like 80 or 90 pounds of just that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe 50 pounds of boned out meat. The head's going to be 20 or 25. The cape's going to be, I don't know, 5 or 7, depending if you cape it or not. But yeah, something like that. And then, of course, your camp, your weapon, your optics, all that stuff. The nice thing is about those sort of things is if you're in a jam, you can always leave that stuff.
Yeah.
You want to get the meat out as quick as you can, and it depends on where you are. I don't know the regs in New Mexico. In Montana, elk hunting, the head has to be the last thing that comes out.
Yeah.
And so, but you can leave, your hunt's over. You can leave your bow up there. You can leave your, whatever, your optics, that's a nice thing. Those are non-perishable things that you can do. But yeah, so that might be 80 or 90 pounds, and then your gear, your camp, whatever else, it can easily be another 40 or something like that. If you are that loaded down. Man, every situation is different. When you're by yourself, you always seem to want to just load up, but it is kind of dangerous too, right? If you do hurt yourself or something, and when you do have a heavy pack, that's probably the most likely time that something bad could potentially happen.
Yeah.
So I always think it's kind of better just to be careful and take 2 loads when you're by yourself. And so, yeah, with an elk, I mean, you guys have to do, with 2 guys, you have to do 2 trips, and that's 2 heavy trips.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it might actually look more like 3 by the time you grab camp, and if you have whatever, however heavy or light you go and however far you in, you really can't really do, I mean, if you kill 1 mile from the truck or something like that, you could do it. And I don't know. I just don't even think it's even worth it. Just do it in 2 trips and probably three with camp. And those are going to be plenty heavy.
Yeah. So how apt are you, or like what percentage of hunts do you do, maybe, however you want to answer this question, where because we've had some people that suggest like, hey, put 3 or 4 days worth of food in your pack and take off and do a loop, come back after 3 or 4 days if you feel like you're not on the elk, or obviously you're going to have to come back to get food even if you're on the elk. Like, how after you to do that versus like just take, a few days worth more meals, because you're kind of going to have everything else. You're going to have it whether you're doing 4 days or 8 days.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Sort of situational dependent, but the nice thing you got to keep in mind about food is it gets lighter every day as you eat it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you're between 2 and 2.5 pounds of food a day, which is kind of where you're probably going to end up landing, depending on what you like to eat, how much, 4 extra days, that's only 8 extra pounds. Mm-hmm. That's assuming there's going to be lots of water where you guys are going to be at. Mm-hmm. And so it really just depends. I like on something like a sheep hunt where it's like, it's a lot more visual, and, you have a lot more sort of debilitating things sometimes, like weather happening. This sort of the style that I subscribe to, people at home subscribe to, is like, get it, if you can swing it, get 7 or 8 or 9 days of food on your back and just go, and sort of pick off these drainages and hunt these ridges and just kind of keep going and hunt your way methodically through an area. Mm-hmm. For something like elk, I would maybe, do the 3 or 4 day thing, because it's more of a, sort of an audio game where you're going to get in and you're going to know in the early mornings and evenings whether or not there's elk there. You're going to hear them, right? And so you maybe want to think about going into a spot, and it's not like we're going to be sitting there glassing for 2 or 3 days waiting for a sheep to pop out of the timber. You're going to hear them right away if they're there.
Yeah.
And if they're not, it's like, move on. If you're not seeing the sign or hearing elk, I would, and it's the peak of the rut, 2nd, 3rd, 4th week of September, whatever, keep moving. And so it just depends on the area. If it's a big wilderness area where you can just keep going and going and going, maybe you carry your 7 days of food. Or if you sort of park at a trailhead that's sort of central and you're like, okay, we're going to hit this drainage and we're going to hit this drainage. And there's other reasons to come back. You can always do that. But I'd sort of let the species and terrain dictate exactly what to do on that front.
Yeah. And so I kind of have a two-part question with that. So being that it's a place we've never been to, when you're talking about letting the species and terrain, like I understand the species, I've hunted them. But I've never hunted this terrain before. So do you feel that it's pretty imperative to go and like understand that terrain before you get there, like pre-scout, or go in and, maybe do like a backpack trip through the area and get familiarized with stuff? That way you're not surprised when you show up.
You know what? I mean, that's ideal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's ideal. Of course, we're all limited by the constraints of time and resources and money that we have to be able to go do these things. Ideally, you get a lot of value from just driving around, all those little things that you don't really notice that, there's water in this creek now. And, I know in September there might not be, or, actually that sign for this trailhead is 2 miles off and the real trailhead is right here. And you kind of get into the area, even just driving around and looking around, you learn some of those things. If you don't have the time, it is what it is, right? You're still going to go hunting. And maybe you build in an extra couple of days on the front end knowing, it's going to be a little tomfoolery at the beginning, kind of going, all right, just sorting everything out. The nice thing is there's like so much you can do with just Google Earth these days.
Oh, yeah.
And you can learn access points and sort of what might work and where water might be, where, north-facing dark timber, shady pockets are that elk might be hanging out when it's hot, and you can sort of have those like points of interest and zones to go into and trails to access. 75% dialed at least you think you have it dialed just from the front end. So I'd say perfect world, you get there and get boots on the ground. But if that's not realistic, there's a lot you can do with Google Earth and a lot you can do with getting on the phone and talking to people and talking to biologists and that sort of thing to get you started off on the right foot.
Yeah. And that's kind of the idea of a perfect world where I'd like to make it out there in August, and I'm kind of planning on doing so, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Nice. I mean, I have a day job, right? And if you have stuff going on, you got to get ready to actually take off the 9-10 days to go on a hunt like this. Like you're going to have to do some other prep work at home for that. But it's cool. But like you're talking about with the map stuff, like I've been using the Onyx layer that has the actual distances on trails. So you take off on this trailhead, and if you stick to the trail, it tells you, down to the 10th of a mile how far it is until it intersects another trail. And it's like super helpful whenever you're looking at a landscape and thinking, okay, I can tell pretty easily how far it is as the crow flies, but what's it actually realistically take to get, to that spot? Kind of along that note, how often do you feel like, when you're heading into a wilderness area or a backcountry hunt, whatever it might be, and you've got, a trails map or whatever, how much do you stick to those trails to like get to a point that you're trying to get to? And how often are you just going cross country and saying, I can kind of pick out this ridge line and walk down this and just kind of go your own way?
Yeah, that's a good question. Really depends sort of the area and the level of remoteness and infrastructure that's in place. And so some spots where you might hunt elk in the lower 48, they might be hiking trails, mountain biking trails. You might see soccer moms walking up there with their Starbucks, when you stage at the trailhead. Yeah. And so those trails might be really good. They might be good little super highways to get you back there and hit some zones that you want to hit. And then some might be so much more remote where there isn't even really a trail and you're trying to, again, I'm going to answer and let the species and terrain sort of dictate that. For like sheep, usually we're trying to get like as high as we can, as quick as we can. Get on top, look down at everything, let sort of the eyes do the walking, so to speak. And for elk, I think it's a lot less that game. It's sort of trying to get into prime habitat where elk are going to be running. And you can do that by walking in there, and you're going to know if you're hearing them and you feel like if the rut's happening, you're going to know if they're there right away. Yeah. And so to answer your question, I think I would use trails as sort of little super highways to get going, and then I would get off them as quick as you can because, there's spots that I've hunted where it might not be that far from a highway or from a road, but it's like 2 miles straight up over deadfall, and then it leads into this like pocket of awesome hunting. You just got to think about what people aren't really willing to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is getting off the trail. And so I wouldn't say, don't take that as a hard and fast rule, but just think about what are other people going to be doing, and elk and all animals are going to want to be where they're as least disturbed as they can possibly be. And so, I don't know, if you think about taking those trails and then going, all right, this little bowl back here looks really good. It's going to be like a mile of bush bash and dead timber hawking, but like we think that we like how it feels, but it looks back there. I wouldn't be afraid to do that because lots of those little pockets all get discovered, and everybody else is going to be coming right on the trail right behind it doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know how limited the tags are or what's going on. When you're hunting over the counter in Colorado or something, like you said, you kind of have to think outside the box and think about spots that people aren't going to be necessarily going to.
Yeah,
right.
And the tag that I drew, I think, is like a touch less than 4% odds or something like that. So it's pretty tough to draw, but at the same time, there's going to be some people around. And New Mexico is 85% resident tags, 83%, something like that. Yeah. So like there's going to be quite a few residents around, but I believe they're going to treat it a little bit different than what I do. They can draw it like every 3 years. So for me, it's once in a lifetime. For them, it's, Johnny hunted this hunt 3 years ago and killed a bull here, a mile and a half from the truck. And so I think that at least where I'm at right now is try to go a little bit deeper than most people are willing to go, but also avoid like going back so far that you're running into outfitter camps and you're not being logistical with what you can get done. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we're at. We're trying to keep everything, like all options open, because I'm not going to lie, if there's a bugler half a mile from the trailhead, I'm going to go after him. I'm not just going to go deep just to try to make it happen.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And keep in mind those little off the beaten track little spots. Like just because you're 10 miles deep doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good. And you could be walking by great elk habitat, every step of the way. And you could also be hunting exactly where other people are hunting because they're thinking the same thing that you are. But those little offshoot spots or spots you got to climb and drop into to get to. People are just like, they're just not really willing to do that as much. It just narrows down the number of people that will be in those spots, it seems like.
Yeah. With that being said, are you, I guess it's called bivvy hunting. I don't know. Sorry if my terminology is wrong, but like, are you hunting with camp on your back every day usually and just setting up at the last place that you feel like where they're going to be kind of thing, so you have advantage in the morning?
Yeah, no, and so for sheep hunting and high alpine stuff, yes, pretty much. Pretty much, unless you get to an area that's like, okay, it's going to take me a day or two to kind of look this all over. But usually moving every day or two if we're not seeing anything. For something like elk, and I'm not an expert elk hunter by any means. I've done a little bit of it. I think it behooves you to sort of get into a spot where there's elk and there's water, and leave camp on water, close to a water source. And elk hunting, the way I think about it, it's like a sprint, and mountain and sort of sheep hunting is like a marathon. It just seems like elk hunting, you're just like up in the morning early, you're chasing the elk down, you're running to cut them off before they're heading up to their bedding area. I think it's like, once you're in the zone, once you're in the spot where there's elk, I would personally leave camp by water and then just have your day pack and go chase them around and get into them.
Yeah.
I know, you could have camp with you the whole time and just sort of keep going, but it just seems like sometimes you got to make moves. You got to, you just kind of get these animals pattern, where they're going. They're going to water. They're, like I said, they're going to bed, or, they kind of traverse along this trail every time. And I don't know, sometimes you have a full pack on, it's like, oh man, I don't know if I can run up there and cut these things off.
Yeah.
So yeah. And if you're not into them, I wouldn't camp where there's no elk. I mean, if you're in a spot and there's daylight and you don't have any elk around you that you can see or hear or smell, I'd say, hey, just kind of keep picking along and or maybe plan that morning to break camp and throw it on your back and say, we're just going to keep going until we get into elk. And once we get to that zone, then we'll camp there.
Yeah, for sure. I think I like the flexibility idea you're talking about, because that's how I like to hunt. A lot of guys have like their style of what they're going to do when they go in there. And I've been saying since the day I drew the tag, I want to keep all options open. And there's some things I'm going to have to close up before we go, like the whole idea of like which pack I'm going to get and stuff like that. But as far as hunting strategy goes, it might be a little bit reckless, but honestly, I kind of want to show up, pick a spot on the map that I think is going to be pretty good kind of before we go, and go in there and just see what the elk tell me to do, and maybe that might be the best thing to do. Understanding different tactics, different ideas is probably a good thing, and knowing how to do those effectively, yes, but deciding on one out of the box or out of the gates is probably not the best thing, because you end up pigeonholing yourself. But, a while ago, you were talking about sprint versus marathon, right? It was sheep versus elk. And to continue on with that analogy, in a sprint versus a marathon, your footwear is going to be drastically different because you need different things for it, right? So when you're sheep hunting as opposed to elk hunting, do you change the types of footwear that you're using? And then along with that, what are you using for those different hunts?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes. The short version is yes. The longer version is usually it's just sort of a couple factors you're looking at. Sort of sheep, high alpine, you're looking at usually generally a heavier overall pack carrying 8 or 10 days of food.
Yeah.
You're looking at like talus and scree and sharp rock. You're looking at potentially for sure you're going to get some rain. You might get some snow. So those are all factors where like full on mountaineering boots are a pretty good option with gaiters. Whereas elk hunting generally, like in the rut, a lot of the times weather can be great, although it can always snow in September. But you're sort of thinking about, okay, I need to be able to go light fast. The other thing is like boots are just really not very quiet. When you're sheep hunting and you're putting a stock on a sheep or a goat or something, it's usually windy. Their hearing, honestly, isn't really that good. They got small little ears if you look at them from just a body composition perspective. Their number one defense is vision. So they have basically the equivalent of 8x42 binoculars in their eyeballs. Sheep do. So they're trying to see you and smell you. They're not really trying to hear you. And there's actually lots of different noises going on. There's rocks rolling and avalanches and other sheep moving around. So sound isn't a big thing. But with elk, they're cued in, and you're in that timber. It can be quiet. They're listening for elk moving around. They're listening for bulls coming in, sneaking in the back door and stealing their cows. Like they are cued up. And so I think, sort of like a crossover type running shoe or trail shoe is a pretty good option. I've worn different ones from different companies like La Sportiva or Solomon that sort of lend themselves. They're not really quite a boot. They got a little bit of traction. And honestly, just for a sheer heavy pack, meat packing perspective, they're not the best footwear. But for hunting elk, I think that they are, because you're going to be a little bit faster and like I said, quieter. And it's going to be hot, and you're going to be running and gunning, and it's just kind of nice to have like you can just do like a Gore-Tex trail shoe. You can try them on. You can do sort of like more of a hybrid low ankle boot. Again, like lots of different companies make them, but I would say try it out. If you got weak ankles, or you just play basketball or something, you probably want the support of a more serious sort of mid-level boot. If you're good to go and you want to try the trail running trail shoe platform out, that's where I would personally lend to. And then for sheep hunting, something more of a really stiff shank and great ankle sport, because you're just kind of dealing with like a little bit different terrain. But number one thing, just like packs, is like get in there, try them out, wear them as many miles as you can with your pack on, and then you're gonna kind of know pretty quickly whether or not that program's gonna work for you when you throw your pack on and how everything feels all kind of set up, ready to go.
You're my man. That's what I'm talking about. The trail runner, dude. Like I've been asking this question to several people we've interviewed for this podcast or for this series, and pretty much hardly anybody has talked about the trail runner thing. And for me, like I have a really narrow foot, and so I feel like I get a lot of like heel slip in boots, especially like going uphill. It feels like, and like I've worn some kind of those like hybrid, and they're cheap, but they're like Columbia. Hybrids or whatever, like trail runner type boots, and they're like the most comfortable things I've ever put on my feet. And I don't have, not that, as soon as I say this, I'll go off and have a hind quarter on my back this summer or this September and twist my ankle or something, but I really have never had ankle issues too much. And so it's good to hear that for sure. But like, I know you mentioned packing weight. Is that the main issue that you're talking about with the trail runner is like the support for ankle, or is it something else?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Ankle support and just like footbed stiffness. So, when you kind of edge into a steep hillside or, you're side hilling, the stiffness, the footbed of the shank of a boot and the last and how it's built are going to be better.
I got you.
No question. And that's the thing about gear, right? It's like all these things are personal choices. All these things you're giving up something to gain something else. And it's all about sort of your priorities and how you think about things. And, with the boots, you're giving up some of that stability for what I think, or I always think about like this too. Like the number one goal is the priority is, hey, we're there to kill an elk. And one of the biggest things I think is in elk hunting is kind of being quiet. And so I think a trail runner is going to let you do that. Therefore, personally, I'm willing to make the sacrifice of ankle support and stiffness to gain, greater quietness on the stock. There's other things you can do too. Is if you don't want to do that, if you're like, hey, I am only comfortable wearing boots. I got a great pair of boots. We're going to be on some steep stuff. I don't like the idea of trail runners. You can do something like you wear your boots. You throw, there's like those safari sneakers you throw on over top. Or I actually got a pair of these stockasins, and this last hunt I was on, my buddy Sloan gave them to me, and they're like a leather moccasin, basically. They're pretty badass. So you can have those in your pack. When you're in close, you throw them on. You take your boots off, you throw on these little leather booties, and you go from there. Elk hunting always seems to get away from you because it's like not like you're stalking a bedded animal where like, okay, I'm going to last like 100 yards of the stalk. I'm going to put on my leather booties and be super quiet. It's like they're kind of moving around and you're chasing them. So that doesn't necessarily always work. I've done like a lot of miles in bare feet. Sock feet, I should say, hunting elk where I throw my pack off and throw my boots off. And then I'm like, why did I ever take my boots off? But there is other options you can do. I would just say the caveat to all of it is try it out for yourself, see what works. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is, there's things you think you need. You think you need a serious boot, or you think you need a 4-season tent. You think you need all these pieces of gear, and you do. I mean, you don't need them until you need them, but it's like all these like calculated risks and sort of, hey, I can make that sacrifice. I know that I'm willing to prioritize this particular thing on this particular hunt, and I'm going to choose this particular piece of gear to allow me to do that.
Yeah. Do you use insoles ever?
Yeah, I use a few different ones. I've used, I don't know, I've used like all different kinds, honestly, but usually I just try and get like a pretty cheap pair of, I think like Red Wing Shoes makes them. They're just like a green kind of additional cushion and support insole. And I just try them out. Usually the stock insole on most footwear is pretty crappy, so I'll either take that out and put more of a cushioning insole in, or I'll use both. I'll try it out with the socks that I'm going to be wearing on that hunt. I'll go there in the store with all that stuff, like with the socks that I'm going to wear, or I'll buy a pair of socks in the store. I'll try different insoles. I'll try and figure it out and get as close to comfortable as I can. I know we use like super feet in the past, and I've kind of used a little bit of everything. But again, feet, super personal and very different challenges depending on how narrow or wide or long or stubby or weird your hobbit feet are. You need to just kind of go in there and try it out yourself.
Yeah, makes sense, man.
No, yeah, totally. So say you've been on your feet all day. You've had a long, long walk in or out or whatever it might be, maneuvering in and out of boulders. What do you like to sit down to a hot bowl of in the evening high on the mountain?
Yeah, no, I think it's an age-old debate. It gets asked around many backcountry hunting camp. It's pretty cool to see a lot more different companies are popping onto the scene that are making freeze dried. The traditional Mountain House lived off those for a long, long time. Backpackers Pantry is sort of the second most popular, biggest company, but there's a bunch of different companies. That are making these offerings, and some of them are kind of geared at the hunting market. I think there's a company called Off Grid Food Co. I was down on a trip, and it was awesome. They had like bison pulled bison 3-cheese mac and cheese. They had what else did they have? Like Thai curry with quail, I think. They had some awesome ones. So there's a lot of different companies, and I'm kind of just looking for like maximum calories, minimum weight usually. But I don't know, a little bit of variety in there is nice too. You kind of get sick of the old staples, but varied degrees of freeze dried. One thing you can do if you're hunting with a partner or a couple of people, if you really want to save on volume and you save a little bit of weight, but more volume, is you can take, let's say you're having mac and cheese. You and I are both having when we're hunting partners. You can empty those 2 mac and cheese Mountain House packets into like a Ziploc bag. And so those freeze drieds come with quite a bit of air in them. Mm-hmm. So if you empty them in a Ziploc bag, kind of like squeeze the air out or suck the air out, you basically cut your volume in half and you save a little bit of weight with the packaging. And there's that little oxidizing package in there as well. So you can do that. You can get olive oil packets from Amazon, throw them in your Mountain House. And like those fats and oils are going to be the highest calorie per ounce thing that you're going to have. And so we always sort of supplement that with some olive oil, especially on longer hunts. Like you're going to lose weight, no question. And every bit of food on your back sort of has to be fuel for the hunt. You don't want to kind of run out. So there's a couple things you can do. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it changes. I'd say mac and cheese is my favorite overall.
That's pretty good. Just
we heard
staple.
That from somebody else, I think, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat mac and cheese whether you're at the house or you're in the mountain. It's pretty tasty. Hey, do you ever think about or even rely on being able to shoot like small game when you're in the backcountry?
These are just some grouse hanging around. You got to check the regs and see if you can hunt them. Or, we have for sure.
Yeah. Do you equate it into your food intake, like assuming you're going to be able to shoot some?
Not really. I never have, but you always eat a lot of rough grouse. Many an elk hunt has been ruined by a rough grouse hunt.
I know, man. It always turns into a grouse hunt every time you see one. Like, oh look, and many $20 arrow has been lost to a grouse as well.
That is true. But yeah, no. If it's legal and they're there, I would say, go for it. That's kind of fun, and they taste really, really good too.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, that's cool. What about as far as you were talking a lot earlier about camping near water and this and that. Are you looking for specific types of water sources to use as like camp water and stuff? And then how are you filtering or treating or whatever on that stuff?
Yeah, no. Usually just looking for running water if it's at all available. Fortunately, a lot of stuff in the north, you're like looking at the glacier or the snow that's melting into the creek, and you just drink it. I've never gotten sick. Touch wood.
Oh, that's nice.
But I mean, anywhere you're hunting in the timber and cattle country and stuff like that, you want to be filtering your water. I mean, I kind of use everything. Right now, I kind of alternate between 2 filters. One's like a Sawyer, it's called. It's like an ounce and a half or 2 ounces. It just squeezes onto the threads of like a platypus bag, and you kind of squeeze it out. That's good for like individual use. It's not too bad. And then the other one that I just got, it's called a company called Geiger makes them, and they make a whole system it's like a hydration bladder, and you can plug in a filter in line into your hydration bag. And so you sort of have these 2 tubes. You have one tube running out, attached to your backpack strap. That's like your bite valve, and water's going to come out of that. And the other tube is basically like a pump. You would go to the doctor's office and they'd read your blood pressure with, sort of like a black rubber pump. That is pressurizing this bag and pushing the water through the filter. So you're drinking filtered water all the time, but you can kind of just like throw your pack down, scoop it up with water, then go rather than sitting there on the creek, like pumping water. So I've been liking that option. With two guys, usually, that's the nice thing about two people. You're splitting the stove. You're splitting water filter. You're splitting, a spotting scope if you're bringing one, which you're probably not if you're elk hunting because you're probably not looking that far, but you're splitting a 2-man tent. You have these things that you sort of have this scale of advantage of hunting with a partner. And so you can bring a little bit maybe better water filter that's more built for like pumping massive quantities of water rather than just kind of individual use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just looking for running water and you're probably going to go through a lot of it. So you never really want to run out, and a good filter is something that will allow you to do that.
Do you ever, okay, this is kind of strange and a little bit counterintuitive, but I am a water guzzler. I mean, I drink a ton of water. We live in humid country. You sweat a lot. You got to drink a lot. Do you ever condition yourself to maybe not take in as much water before you go up there? Because, I mean, honestly, I'd probably drink a gallon or a little over a day. But like sometimes it's just not that readily available, especially if you're talking southern latitudes, or feasible to, gather a gallon of water a day. Do you ever condition yourself or try to just ration water like that?
Yeah, I never have. It's one thing that I just know that I don't do that great in the heat and in the desert. And it's sort of the one thing it is what it is. It's heavy. It's 2.2 pounds a liter, or, it's, for a gallon, it's basically 8 or 9 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it just is what it is. I haven't ever conditioned it, but you just need to drink it when you got it and carry it when you don't. And I think you're about spot on. I think 4 liters a day or a gallon is kind of minimum. And then you got some water for cooking and getting by. I think you'll get by with that, but it just depends on your activity level. It depends on how hot it is and those factors. But those elk hunting, those are long days too, right? Like you might be out. You're going to be out before sunrise, and you might be out long after dark, kind of getting back to camp. So, as much as you can carry that you feel comfortable with, I'd say have it with you.
Yeah. So after cooking dinner and getting all your water put together for the night, usually like the next thing that comes is sleep. And the motif that we hear across this series is how important that is. So like, what does your system look like? Your bag, your pad, your tent? What does all that look like right now?
Yeah, I run, depending on the trip, a Hilleberg tent, which they just kind of make, in my opinion, kind of the best tents for sort of the stuff that I like to do. And they offer a lot of different options and levels of protection that you may or may not need on an elk hunt, honestly. I mean, if the weather's good, you could be running a bivy sack or a tarp or whatever. My personal preference is like not to usually skimp too much on tents because the weather can change in an instant, and it's pretty nice to have like that as your home base, have a decent tent. So I run one of many different Hilleberg options depending on whether I'm with somebody or by myself, or it's a 3-season or 4-season or what I'm doing. But and then my pad is a Thermarest X-Therm, which is like the highest R value to weight pad around. I think it's like 16 ounces and an R value of like 5.6 or something like that.
Yeah.
And my sleeping bag, I actually kind of have a few depending on the trip too, but like a 20 degree is what I'm running right now. I run a 15 degree from Stone Glacier I have as well, but and then I have like a 0 degree that for the later season stuff. But and then probably the most important thing is a pillow. You can get these little inflatable ones. I think mine's like from a company called like Cocoon or something. Little inflatable pillows. You stuff it up in the hood of your sleeping bag, and you will thank me that you brought that.
Yeah, I got one for the trip, man. I've always done the wad up a hoodie and put it under your head kind of thing, but like I finally got one, and I'm pretty excited to try it out because I'm a light sleeper, and so every little thing wakes me up, so I need as much comfort and peace as possible, I feel like. And you mentioned the bivy earlier, and one thing I've heard about the bears in New Mexico is that they think that you're a human burrito. And so I'm with you on the tent thing for sure.
Yeah, I just never thought that was that great of an experience. You got bugs flying around.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's just a thin layer of like nylon ripstop, but that seems to at least mentally protect you more from a bear than just being out.
Yeah, exactly.
In the open.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. I've kind of tossed around the tarp idea and thinking about doing that. I really want to get it and try it out some before I commit to it on a backcountry hunt. And I think that's one of the things that I'm learning. And not that I can't speak as like an expert on this, but I think that getting everything it takes for a backcountry hunt and then using it before you're actually like depending your life on it is going to be a big thing. And like learning how to do this stuff. And like, for instance, know how to set it, pitch a tent with trekking poles or whatever before you get in there in the dark trying to do it. I think that trying to just have practice at this stuff is going to be pretty important.
No, totally. Yeah. And I think you're going to make mistakes. So try to make them as much as you possibly can before you're actually on the hunt.
Yeah.
All those things. Get it, even go for a hike, go for an overnight, get that stuff set up in your backyard, whatever you got to do. And then, like I said earlier, like get that pack and your boots and anything in it that you might be carrying, or just throw concrete in it, whatever, and get moving around with that. Cause like, I think you're just going to kind of suss out all those different options and make all those mistakes before you actually, when it counts.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, you have had a ton of good advice, man, and it's good to talk to somebody who really roughs it and understands like what it takes to live out there. And we can't thank you enough. But if one of our listeners wants to connect with you, follow you, see what you got going on the daily or weekly, where can they find out more about Adam and maybe what you got going on?
Yeah, you bet. You can find me on our website. Our website is just Foss.media, just my last name. You can check us out on Instagram. My handle is Fossman8, number 8, FOSSMAN is the number 8. Usually try to keep up with things on there, although sometimes go off the grid for a while and don't. And then, check out the companies that we work with. Sitka Gear is a clothing company that we worked with for a long time. Yeti Coolers is a great company that supports what we do. Check out Gerber Knives and Tools. They're awesome equipment that help us do what we do. And we kind of are really lucky to know all these great people that we've met along the way, and these companies that support what we're up to from a film and photography perspective and from a hunting perspective, and also trying to keep this thing called hunting and wild places and public lands around for our kids to see it, right? So check them out and support them where you can, and good luck. Yeah, I'm excited to hear how everything goes, and when you end up buying a house in Alaska or Canada or wherever, you can, or just never coming back. You can blame your family can blame me.
That's right. I'll send them your way.
That's right.
Yeah, awesome, dude. Well, thanks. We'll keep you posted on how the hunt goes and stuff, and keep us posted. And I can't wait to see how your season goes. I know the sheep stuff is kind of one of the first things to kick off, so looking forward to living vicariously through what you got going on.
Yeah, rock and roll, guys. Yeah, thanks for reaching out, and good luck.
All right, you too, bro. We'll see you later.
Okay, bye, guys.
See ya. Man, that was some killer info. If you found this interview helpful, be sure and leave us a review below and comment what you thought was the most helpful tip from this episode.
For sure. Make sure you also follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, and also subscribe on YouTube so you can see how these hunts turn out.
Remember, this is your element.
Live in it. Been waiting my whole life for that.
The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, We're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.